Support.
The maestro, please.
End of the month, so it's time for a not-so-ordinary pop analysis. Get it? Because today we're doing Oridnary by Alex Warren. Jokes.
Alex Warren.
Alex Warren Hughes, simply known as Alex Warren, is an internet personality and a singer, initially associated with the TikTok collective based in Los Angeles, The Hype House. Musically speaking, he has been active since 2019, but has only gained this surge in popularity within the last year. Since he's so new to the pop music scene, he really doesn't have that many hits, well, until recently.
Background.
Oridnary was originally released on February 7th of 2025, charting 2 weeks later at number 61. It has slowly worked its way up the charts, and as of the beginning of May, it's at number 3. Considering it's a love song about his wife, it has gotten a lot of popularity at weddings, and has even been made into a wedding version that was released on March 18th.
Something so wild of the ordinary. You got me kissing the ground.
Oridnary is off Alex Warren's debut studio album, You'll Be Alright Kid Chapter 1, specifically its digital reissue, as the original version did not actually have it on said album. The album was originally released on September 27th of 2024, and Oridnary is actually the 7th single off of the album. Considering the original album only has 10 tracks, more than half of the songs have been released as singles. That being said, the big ones notably are
I'll save you a seat next to me. You always you know I will carry you up, whether it's the night or
and finally,
you knew the house was burning down. I had to get out.
credits besides Alex Warren on this include Adam Yaron, Cal, and Mags Duvall. When it comes to the 3 other credits, Adam Yaron, Cal Shapiro, better known as Cal, and Margaret Chapman, better known as Mags Duvall, they all are artists in their own right, have a couple of credits to their name, but for all of them, this is their first big pop hit. Oridnary is released solely by Atlantic.
Form.
Oridnary is listed as a chamber pop song, is just over 3 minutes long, is in D major, 12/8 time, or a triplet 4/4 if you wish, and 112 beats per minute. The song opens with the first verse.
They say the holy water's watered down.
Really the only pre-chorus.
Oh my love.
And then the first chorus.
Taking me out of the ordinary.
It then goes into the second verse.
Hopeless, hallelujah.
And second chorus.
I want you laying me down to a dead buried.
Before going into a bridge.
Something so heavenly, higher than ecstasy.
The third chorus.
Shatter me with your touch. Oh Lord, return me to dust.
And ultimately the end of the song.
Jealous, know what we found.
Harp.
First time we're talking about a harp on this show. Some people do think it's a ukulele, but if you look at live performances, you can confirm it's a harp. Basically just doing 2 bars of E minor over G and 2 bars of D major over F sharp. Note though, on the second to last of each kind of 2-bar phrase, it does do 1 additional note. For that E minor, it hits that 1 F sharp, and for that D major, it does hit that 1 E. During the choruses, it does tend to get drowned out because the harp's not exactly a loud instrument, but you can hear it underneath everything. Again, doing that same arpeggiation, but now doing different chords. E minor over G, D major over A, G major over B, A major over C sharp, B minor over D, a longer held out A major over C sharp, and then doing that D major over A to pivot back to the beginning of the chord progression.
Keyboards.
I say keyboards here because I'm actually referring to 2 different keyboard instruments in this section, the organ and the piano. We actually get the organ first in the very beginning. You can hear it fade in underneath the harp. Starts off doing these high E minor over G chords and then D major over F sharp chords. Soon after, the piano comes in on its lower register doing these low octaves of E and then D. Once we actually get further into the song, the organ actually drops down an octave, kind of mimicking what the piano's doing. They're basically doing the same thing, that 2-bar held out E minor chord and that 2-bar held out D major chord. Similarly to the harp, it's when we get to the chorus that we actually get the formal meat of the harmonies, doing that E minor, then to G major through a D major, then to B minor through an A major, then hitting that A major at the end before using that D major pivoting back to E minor. There are some variations it does on that, like at this part right here near the end, we have just the right hand of the piano playing those chords before the left hand comes in later in fifths, and then obviously on that A major chord at the end, it's hammering those fifths more and more rigorously. And of course we have this towards the climax at the end, doing those creeping up motions in triple octaves before doing the B minor chord and the A major chord.
Strings.
For the most part, the strings do tend to blend in with everything, so that's not really much we haven't talked about already, minus these two sections. When we first hear the strings come in, we almost hear only one string instrument just bouncing on that D throughout the entire 4-bar phrase. In the following phrase, though, things get a bit more interesting, doing these tremolo holds, that E minor over G, and then jumping down to that D major over A before going back up to the E minor over G, then hitting that D major over the A. The accented offbeats really make this stand out a bit more as well.
Verse.
For the most part, the verses do have Alex Warren low in his range. You'll notice we get all the way to that low A. Not too much in terms of syncopation. We get a little bit, such on Town Lost Its and Colors Will Fade.
They say the holy water's watered down, and this town's lost its faith. Our colors will fade eventually.
In the following phrase, we don't expand on this idea much, still maintaining that lower range, really only getting high as that F sharp, and only slight spots of syncopation.
So if our time is running out, day after day, we'll make the mundane our masterpiece.
The second verse is actually even more simplistic. We're really just hitting those dotted quarter notes over and over, and mostly we're just singing on E. Yes, we have a little bit of F sharp and we have a little bit of D, but it's mostly just those E notes.
Hopeless hallelujah on this side of heaven's gate.
Given as we move on, we now jump in register all the way to that high F sharp on top of the staff. Still very much staying on those E's, but now those E's are an octave higher, and obviously we have that longer melisma on away.
Oh my life, how do ya breathe and take my breath away?
The second verse is one phrase longer, and I am kind of essentially combining that oh my into it. Some people argue that that is the second pre-chorus, but it's just one bar, and I can't call one bar a section of music. Regardless, you do see that this is much more interesting, much more dynamic than anything in the verses we've had before, which makes sense considering it's the last part of the verses that we hear.
At your altar I will pray, you're the sculptor, I'm the clay. Oh my, it's
Pre-chorus.
So this is really the only pre-chorus I think is actually in the song, as I said earlier. Regardless, those groups of 3 dotted quarter notes, oh my, going F sharp, A, B, before going down to love, holding that F sharp and dropping down to E, and then we have a lot of these repeated E figures before getting into the first chorus proper.
oh my love. I take one look at you.
Chorus.
So similarly to some of the stuff before, we are very low in Alex Warren's rage. We get all the way to that low A, but you'll notice that there is spacing between a lot of these different subphrases.
You're taking me out of the ordinary. I want you laying me down to a dead and buried.
As we continue on through the chorus, note that the subphrases are still split up, and even further between some of them, but we do start to gradually move up as we get to Angels Up in the Clouds, Jealous No One we found,
On the edge of your knife, staying drunk and revived. angels up in the clouds are jealous knowing we found.
And then we finally get to the higher point in his range, getting all the way again to that high F sharp. For the most part, the rhythms are still the same. We still kind of got the same form going on between the splits and these subphrases, but we do have some changed words.
Something so wild of the ordinary. You got me kissing the ground of your sanctuary.
Oddly enough, we actually start to get even higher in his range, hitting that A above the staff, and now we start to get more melismas as well before the first chorus actually ends.
Shatter me with your touch, oh Lord, return me to dust. The angels up in the clouds are jealous knowing we found.
In the second chorus, we actually don't even stay low, we just start off in the higher part, and even further, we get additions from these sort of backup choir vocals. We have these O's that lead up before they actually start responding to what Alex Warren is saying, such on the words out, ordinary, ground, and sanctuary.
Jealous knowing we found something so wild, ordinary. You got me kissing the ground, sanctuary.
Beyond that, the only other change in the chorus we get is actually in the last chorus. This is pretty much identical to what was said in the first chorus, except we now have a melisma going up on the word vine.
On the edge of your night, staying drunk on your vine. The angels up in the clouds are jealous knowing we found.
Bridge.
The one part of the song that actually starts up high in his range. The rhythms are pretty simplistic, nothing too crazy here, but you can see how often we're actually staying up higher in his range, pretty much on that F sharp for the most part.
Something so heavenly, higher than ecstasy. Whenever you're next to me, oh my, my.
He does pretty much stay up there for the entirety of it, given as we transition out of the bridge into the third chorus, he starts moving down, as the third chorus does start off on that lower end of his range, similarly how we did the first chorus.
What was in black and white until I saw your light? I thought you had to die to fight.
Not gonna lie, very much getting some Hozier vibes from this song, that sort of church or gospel adjacent music. Very interesting for a pop song, and I'm sure churches are gonna use this for one thing or another. Regardless, as for Alex Warren himself, starting off as a social media influencer and turning into this sort of overnight success with his music, well, he most certainly achieved his job of
Taking me out of the ordinary. I want you laying me down so we're dead and buried. On the edge of your night, staying drunk on your vine.
I swear, within a year of getting married, all of these good first dance wedding songs start coming out. Do I regret what we picked? No, but I most certainly know that I would have picked one of these if we were to get married again.
The angels up in the clouds are jealous knowing we found something so wild.